Greetings, everyone. And thank you so much for tuning in to Radio New Vegas. We hope you enjoyed our previous segment of Jingle, Jangle, Jingle. But now we have something very special in store for you. Recently, a lone wanderer who called himself Rusty Cheeseknife stopped by and handed us a holotape recording. Then, without saying anything, he smiled, tipped his hat, and strode out the door into the sunset. After vetting the holotape, we here at Radio New Vegas have come to discover that this is, in fact, a commentary about Amazon's Fallout show. Now, normally, Radio New Vegas wouldn't invest long segments of time to lengthy audio essays, but in this case, I believe an exception must be made.
Amazon's Fallout is a notable example of cinema as ceremony. Community without communication. So we're at a point where many modern franchises are rapidly losing their worth. While a popular franchise like Fallout could once be trusted to provide structure and meaning to a work like Amazon's Fallout, the community has long since seen the cracks in the pavement, and Amazon's Fallout is not alone in this predicament. Many modern franchises are trying and continually failing to reproduce the same feelings that once governed and guided their communities, and that's a precarious position for mainstream media to be in because remakes or sequels within a popular franchise will only be as strong as their communities. And yet, as we've seen, modern franchises have been bereft of the collective feelings that once piloted and guided them, which has left today's consumers free for exploitation and manipulation by neoliberal psychopolitics, i.e. wokeness. And the Fallout TV show is no exception to this.
This fruit-bearing collaboration between like-minded corporations that make America great. That is how we will win the great game of capitalism, not by outfighting anyone, but by outliving them.
Like many other popular franchises, the Fallout franchise has become a commodity for its own sake, which is ironic given the artificially injected social commentary about capitalism. And the symbolic power that was once able to bind people together as a community is fading. Many Fallout fans have been left worse off for this TV show. The franchise has lost any objective merit, and there's nothing to gain from watching this show other than a sense of nostalgia. Going in, you will know that it is the Fallout show, you know that it is based on a larger franchise, and you know that said franchise has a considerable following, and therefore you will tend to conflate the worth of this show with said franchise. While there are indeed people who will be completely unaware of why Fallout is even a significant franchise in the first place, the show would nevertheless not exist without its community. And in following it, that same community expects the franchise to acknowledge them in some way, whether that be through commentary, through appreciation, through mockery, or simply passive contemplation. And this fan service is also conflated with good storytelling. For some, the fact that the show even exists will be taken as an acknowledgement, and therefore fans will have already decided that the show is good. Even those with negative opinions will nevertheless accept it for what it is and move on to their next slice of pie. But there will be very little acknowledgement of the fact that this is not just a case of bad writing. There's something wrong with the industry as a whole. As is a common case with modern woke media, the Fallout show is possessed to say something to its audience, to engage in some measure of didactism in replacement of theme or meaning. Now, if you were to be bothered to explain what the meaning of the story is in the Fallout show, you might mention Lucy's search for her father, or Maximus and Cooper hunting down this former Enclave scientist. Yes, these things do literally happen, but any actual importance would not be conveyed in the what, but the why. And so what exactly compels the audience to care about what any of these characters are doing? The answer to that is, it's a mystery box. Classically, the why would be justified in establishing an antagonist. However, the show does not even give us the courtesy of that. If we're to take into any serious consideration why our characters are struggling in the first place, knowing what they're up against would give us an understanding of how they work internally, and in contrast to any forces arrayed against them. Foregoing that, the show instead proceeds under an and then this happens, and then that happens mode of progression into unpacking its mystery box. And the bulk of the show's disappointment will inevitably occur when, once finally unpacked, one reaches their arm into said mystery box and discovers course, there's nothing there. It's an inevitable disappointment, of course, because more than a handful of people who were once avid fans of the franchise of old will recognize that without a guiding purpose, the franchise is doomed to meander. Now here I'd like to explore some of the reasons why the franchise currently does not work in ways that have not been explored by other think tanks on YouTube. In a nutshell, the Fallout franchise was never concerned about the bomb, but about the world after the bomb.
War never changes. The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted. Too many humans, not enough space or resources to go around. The details are trivial and pointless. The reasons, as always, purely human ones.
As decades passed, what had been the American Southwest united beneath the flag of the new California Republic, dedicated to old world values of democracy and the rule of law. As the Republic grew, so did its needs. Scouts spread east, seeking territory and wealth in the dry and merciless expanse of the Mojave Desert. They returned with tales of a city untouched by the warheads that had scorched the rest of the world, and a great wall spanning the Colorado River. The NCR mobilized its army and sent it east to occupy Hoover Dam and restore it to working condition. But across the Colorado, another society had arisen under a different flag. A vast army of slaves forged from the conquest of 86 tribes, Caesar's Legion. 4 years have passed since the Republic held the dam, just barely, against the Legion's onslaught. The Legion did not retreat. Across the river, it gathers strength. Campfires burn, training drums beat.
Even as war never changes, the main sticking point or theme of the franchise would be that despite the bomb, mankind still tends to readopt its petty rivalries and seek out war as a means of conflict resolution. That's a message the franchise promotes right out of the gate. That versus, say, the horrifying ending promoted by another post-apocalyptic film, The Planet of the Apes.
You maniacs! You blew it up!
Planet of the Apes is a 1968 American science fiction film loosely based on a French novel of the same name. The film is about an astronaut crew that crash lands on a strange planet. Having been placed in a state of suspended sleep beforehand, their ship is also served as a time capsule, causing the crew to wake up in the far distant future. And although the planet appears to be a lifeless and desolate wasteland, the surviving crew happen upon a society full of apes who are highly intelligent, walk upright, and are also capable of human speech. Now, without going into much detail about the story itself, what follows is that the main character, George Taylor, played by Charlton Heston, uncovers the remains of a technologically advanced human society predating the current simian society. And then, right before the film ends, Taylor has decided to go on a journey to find out what happened to this lost civilization, only to discover the remnants of the Statue of Liberty. Now, this was one of the greatest twist endings in classic cinema, as it revealed that this alien planet was in fact Earth the whole time, only having been destroyed by an apocalyptic nuclear war. After this revelation, Taylor is seen falling to his knees, pounding his fists into the ground and cursing humanity itself for what had happened. While a variety of themes and meanings may be extrapolated from the Planet of the Apes, most assuredly one will have taken the story as a warning about the continual advancement of technology, as well as the human propensity to warfare.
Tell me though, does man, that marvel of the universe, that glorious paradox who sent me to the stars, still make war against his brother?
Dramatically speaking, The Planet of the Apes is written as a tragedy, a story that treats sorrowful or terrible events in a serious or dignified manner. Despite Taylor's cursing humanity for having turned the world into a parking lot, the story does not necessarily point fingers at any specific party involved, nor any system of ideology or realm of thought that may have been responsible for the destruction. Taylor is shouting to the heavens and cursing humanity in general. Undoubtedly, the ending is introspective, meaning the whole point of the story is for one to look inwardly at what it means to be a person and what it means to live. Now, I refer to the Planet of the Apes regarding the Fallout franchise here because these themes make a resurgence within this similar setting, a post-apocalypse. The retro-future aesthetic within the Fallout games is remarkable, because it taps into this wonderment of advanced technology, a bright future. But within that wonderment, Fallout has also tapped into this tragic vision of the upward mobility of technology. Beyond the fact that the world in Fallout exists in this post-nuked state, that world is also full of monsters, be they ghouls, super mutants, deathclaws, or robots. Everything in symbolic representation of the threat to humanity that all this progress actually entails. The joy and wonderment reversed and transformed into terror and horror.
Avoid my ghouls if you like your skin on.
These technological advancements all led to a bitter end, and not that bright and hopeful future. In affirmation to the tragic vision, we are constantly told through narration that war never changes. For even though the way we fight wars may change depending on our technology, the outcome still involves a significant loss of human life in a grand effort to resolve conflict. The Fallout franchise differs from the Planet of the Apes in that Fallout begins where the Planet of the Apes ends. In Fallout, you know the world ended, and you know why it happened. There's no twist resulting in a heavy moment of introspection. Instead, the name of the franchise, Fallout, takes on multiple meanings concerning what the Fallout series is all about. Most obviously, Fallout refers to nuclear radiation, but it may also refer to a tough situation that has resulted from poor decision-making. Moreover, Fallout is also a military command meant for troop dispersion. Troop dispersion is poignant regarding the first two games, the main character being someone who is commissioned by his tribe to pursue a quest of vital importance.
The old discs speak of an item called the Garden of Eden Creation Kit.
And in the case of making the best out of a tough situation, the courier in Fallout New Vegas is forced to recoup his losses after being shot and left for dead.
Truth is, the game was rigged from the start.
In any case, what the Fallout franchise is mainly concerned about is not the bomb, but the world after the bomb. And just as war never changes, the main sticking point or theme of the franchise would be that despite the bomb, mankind still tends to readopt its petty rivalries and seek out war as a means of conflict resolution. So you have the first game, which has one contending with the Master and his super mutant army in a manner not unlike a 20th century superpower vying for genetic superiority.
Of course.
Mutants are best equipped to deal with the world today.
Who else?
The ghouls?
Please.
Normals?
They brought nuclear death to us all. This will be the age of mutants.
Mutants.
And then the second game, while a bit more complex than the first, held to the same underlying ideology. Stop the Enclave as the Enclave seeks to purge the world of all genetic impurities.
The only way for true humans and democracy to be safe is to cleanse the mutants from the globe. We humans will take back that which is rightfully ours.
Unlike the tragic vision of humanity as seen in the Planet of the Apes, the Fallout franchise adopted a more hopeful vision of the monomyth. Now, the idea here was that if some kind of malevolent entity did arise and attempt to subjugate the world to its will, there would always be a fly in the ointment. Some anomalous and heroic figure would rise to the occasion and put a stop to the ongoing evil. Now, in the first three games, Fallout 1, 2, and 3, we see that the simplest point of view one could take concerning all world conflicts is to say everything boils down to an evil superpower attempting its own global takeover and enacting their own brand of political piety. But surely they would be defeated by a chosen one who goes on this grand adventure to get there. And yes, for better or for worse, Fallout 3 would also attempt to capitalize on these themes within Bethesda's extremely convoluted manner, and yet it wasn't until Fallout New Vegas we begin to see something far less black and white employed within the storytelling. And so, as if in response to the phrase war never changes, Fallout New Vegas explores the reason why war never changes. While the first three Fallout games did deal with the world after the bomb, New Vegas dealt with a world whose idealized despots had been overthrown. And therein, the game sought to address one major question: who ought to be in control now? Who truly deserves the position of supreme authority?
I prefer the term autocrat. I would rule as the chief executive. I would not answer to a board of directors or any other entity. Nothing to impede progress. If you want to see the fate of democracies, look out the windows.
And the real reason why New Vegas stands as a true bastion of storytelling is that no matter what choice you, the player, make, in the end, there is no ideal.
In the new world of the Mojave Wasteland, fighting continued, blood was spilled, and many lived and died just as they had in the old world. Because war never changes.
Because people are fallen creatures. Human nature is inherently sinful. That is our tragedy. The same tragedy that was realized by George Taylor in The Planet of the Apes.
Damn you! God damn you all to hell!
And unfortunately, the franchise effectively died after Fallout New Vegas, as in, the soul had departed. True, Bethesda would release Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, but past the veneer of the franchise aesthetics was this husk of a product attempting to capitalize on elements of the previous games without understanding those elements. Much of that has been covered in a variety of analyses on YouTube, but most poignantly in 20-Sided's video about how Bethesda never understood Fallout.
You roam all over the place in Fallout 1 and you meet a lot of strange people, but nowhere in that voyage do you meet comical throwbacks to the old world. You don't meet any greaser gangs. You don't meet any old-timey Prohibition-era gangsters with Tommy guns. There's no pinstripe suits, no Letterman jackets, no horn-rimmed glasses, no pompadour haircuts, no baseball players, no sundresses, no neckties, no newsies, and not a single gumshoe. There aren't any wacky DJs playing 200-year-old doo-wop songs. The game is not subtle about this. The old world is gone. Like, that's the point. But then Bethesda got their hands on the Fallout license and they somehow thought it was about a 1950s flavored apocalypse? That's multiple layers of wrong.
And so all this brings me to talk about Amazon's Fallout. And much like Fallout 4, the show is also an attempt to capitalize on the franchise without understanding it. And here let's explore why the show will be both a success and a failure. The success of the Fallout show will be built on a popular franchise whose roots date back as far as the 90s. For lack of creative innovation, those currently involved with the modern arts have been forced to make regular withdrawals from the blood bank of popular franchises. And since the Fallout franchise is popular, it was inevitable it was going to meet some measure of significant success based on its name alone. The game's retro-future aesthetics, including the vaults, the vault suits, the power armor worn by the Brotherhood of Steel, and so much more. For all the Leos in the audience, there's plenty of stuff for you to point to if you're into the whole Easter egg hunt. And by the way, the name for this type of media consumption is the constant search for moments of joy, a phrase I've borrowed from Sweet Baby Inc.'s Kim Belair. Moments of joy are what modern audiences look at nowadays and have convinced themselves that this is good storytelling. But more colloquially, people may call this pandering or fan service. They're things that directly appeal to your tastes. Nowadays, with so much data gathering going on, it's a merchant's paradise for the art industry. No doubt marketers know exactly what fans are looking for, browsing popular franchise wikis, watching analysis videos on YouTube. They know fans are into their lore dumps and into their kino consumption, and they've learned that if they just throw a bunch of stuff that fans recognize onto their TV screens, it'll be enough to convince them that the TV show, the movie, the video game, whatever it is, it's good. From there on, any generic plot can wear moments of joy as a t-shirt and bandy about, and fans will continue to convince themselves that this is a good story. And that's why the show has been successful. Note, I've said the show is successful, not good. In fact, the show is poorly written, to say the very least, and serves no purpose beyond pandering to an audience who simply enjoys being catered to. And so why is the show a failure?
Each dialectic begins with a proposition, a thesis, which inherently contains or creates its opposite, an antithesis. Thesis and antithesis. The conflict is inevitable, but the resolution of the conflict yields something new, a synthesis, eliminating the flaws in each, leaving behind common elements and ideas.
So as much as the Fallout show's success will draw upon feelings of nostalgia, and will receive praise because of that, the second edge to nostalgia is the realization that the people running the show are purposely using nostalgia without a full understanding of the material that they are dealing with. Now, earlier I mentioned how media has this propensity to mock its followers, and in some cases, the writers seemingly could not help themselves. For example, having a young Maximus walk out of a fridge, completely unharmed by atomic weapons, has been cited as a callback to Fallout 4. In Fallout 4, there's a side quest where you find a ghoul child inside a fridge, somehow surviving without food or water for 200 years. And this has long since been cited as a completely moronic addition to the game, as it conflicts with how the franchise has long since established how ghouls work.
I'm not delicate. Rad roach meat for protein, condensation off the pipes for water, and I do my business over in the far corner.
But beyond that, you have other details like how the show represents Mr. House or Sinclair. And yes, this guy, who's supposed to represent the Big Empty, is also supposed to be Sinclair from the Dead Money DLC. Figure that out.
Never got mad at anything, nothing seemed to shake him. Even after his life kept getting dragged through the dirt.
Let's call this what it is, bud. Your sales aren't up to snuff, and you need money.
Always kept looking for the bright, shining future in everything.
We could intentionally overcrowd a vault so people have to compete to survive inside it.
But then there's things that are a bit more subtle. Like, why does the show play the Fallout 4 theme song while Lucy is fiddling around with the NCR flag? Ultimately, there are any number of ways the show lets on a depth of knowledge that the writers had about the franchise, yet all they did with said knowledge was either illustrate their ignorance of the meaning behind it all, or just mock former fans with it. But the biggest reason the show will fail is because of the very end.
There's a lot of earning potential with the end of the world. But we're talking about making a significant investment based on a hypothetical. How can you guarantee results?
By dropping the bomb ourselves.
The show's entire mystery box setup has its payoff in the final 2 episodes, where we discover that the world was intentionally destroyed by Vault-Tec in order to wipe the slate clean and bring humanity into a far more manageable state. From beginning to end, this is the twist the entire story was building up to, which is why a recap from beginning to end is completely unnecessary for this review. You see, once you realize what everything was leading up to, you will also have to acknowledge that all the moving parts in the story's machine are rendered worthless. But overall, the writers have concerned themselves with the bomb, even though the franchise was never about the bomb. And on top of that, the effort of fleshing out the motivation for the bomb is this.
That is how we will win the great game of capitalism, not by outfighting anyone,
but by outliving them.
So as you can see, they were not holding back with this one. They just removed any sense of timelessness from this retro future's post-apocalyptic setting and make a quick jab at Donald Trump because the show was airing during an election year.
This fruit-bearing collaboration between like-minded corporations that make America great.
So this is new Fallout, people. Its creators are using a beloved franchise to preach politics to you.
And while you were away at war, I stayed home.
I know you.
I was checking the mail every day. I was waiting by the phone every night. And every night I was driving myself crazy, imagining the worst. So you do not need to tell me how bad war is, Coop.
These soldiers that we're fighting abroad, their families, we have more in common with them than we do with the people here in power, the real enemy. I'm not a communist, Mr. Howard. That's just a dirty word they use to describe people who aren't insane.
And here I feel it pertinent to remind everyone that ZeniMax Media, the parent company to Bethesda, just so happens to be a multi-billion-dollar company, not to mention Amazon, which is a multi-trillion-dollar company.
So what are you, a millionaire communist?
Hypocrisy is like violence in your movies. If you only let the bad guys use it, the bad guys win.
No, hypocrisy is just hypocrisy. Inventing some stupid nonsense slogan and then having one of your TV show characters say it like they're making some point does not make it any more or less what it is. My point here is that the story for the show is not written in a manner that would have it fit organically within the franchise. There's no thoughtfulness involved, nor any true meaning conveyed. This is blatant political signaling. It doesn't do anything for the story, it doesn't add to the setting. The only reason this is really there is to win brownie points with a particular political base. Otherwise, I don't see this changing hearts and minds. Hell, I hesitate to even call this a story. Rather, it's just a show where stuff happens and Amazon threw the Fallout label on it. Beyond that, it's slop. Now, people will talk about the lore and whether or not the show has retconned anything, but none of that really matters if the franchise has no soul. And if people want to argue that it's not woke, one look at Amazon's DEI page is all you need to know that Amazon is fully on board with anti-whiteism in addition to forced representation and forced inclusivity.
Your difference is our strength. So we're approaching diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility the same way. Let's use our collective power to shape a better future for our people, our customers, and the world. Because what happens out there happens to all of us. This means addressing the big issues of today and whatever comes next. Because we'll go further when everyone is seen, heard, and valued.
For those of you who are marginalized, whatever space you occupy in this industry, and I want you to know that I see you and I recognize you and I'm doing the work along with you. And if I can suggest to you one thing, is that you take kind of a moment to think about times when you have felt seen and representative and share them as loudly as you possibly can.
I mean, it would be nice to believe the characters we see in these works are completely and organically conceived of and developed, but when these companies are outright telling their consumers that they are forcing woke ideals into their products, then what else can one conclude? It is woke slop and Amazon is not hiding it. Now refer back to the Planet of the Apes again with Taylor shouting to the heavens in front of a half-buried Statue of Liberty. That movie earned its twist ending, an ending that struck a chord because there was meaning to it. There's a great measure of timelessness to that scene because Taylor does not blame anyone other than humanity in general. In contrast, the twist in the Fallout show is hollow and meaningless because it is far too specific and is obviously generated from current year political posturing. The way I see it, there's only two basic responses to the worldview conveyed by the show's writing. Either one agrees because of confirmation bias, or one disagrees because the only reason the bad guys are bad is because they were just written that way. In either case, the audience will not walk away from this show any more or less enlightened or enriched by the whole experience. But you see, in the beginning I talked about how the franchise was all about the world after the bomb. Fallout 1, 2, and 3 were about the monomyth, and then Fallout New Vegas was about the human condition. These games espouse the two basic avenues in storytelling, comedy and tragedy. The Fallout show, on the other hand, is neither a comedy nor a tragedy. It's a nothing. The show concerns itself entirely with the bomb and why the bomb happened, but there's no point at which the audience is meant to be introspective about that. Either you hate these crazy capitalists who did evil things because reasons as written by people who work for multi-million-dollar companies, or you don't. Otherwise, what else can one say about the show? Stuff happened, they called it Fallout. And Orange Man bad. The end. And so if you found you enjoyed this channel's content, give the video a like and subscribe to Rusty Cheese Knife. In addition, you may also support me through Patreon or Cash App, and the links for both may be found in this video's description. Thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for more.